Hi, I'm Miriam Joy and welcome to my studio. Love is in the air. Well, at least love for Valentine's crafts. So I want to go back and revisit some of the ones that I think you would really enjoy. Let's get started. Hi, I'm Miriam Joy and welcome to my studio. Today we're going to be doing the rose boxes, and this was a fun little project that I came up with. I actually received a gift in this wonderful box at Christmas time, and I was so excited about the box itself. I actually can't remember what came in it as the gift, but I knew I wanted to make it into something special. So we're going to turn it into just an ordinary cardboard box into a little treasure box for you or somebody you love. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put our wax on the box, and you can use any shape or size that you want to on the box. So I'm going to use a heart-shaped box, and you can put any pattern and you can draw it on. Just make sure that you leave room for the rose. You could draw it on with your charcoal pencil if you need to as well. I'm just going to do a simple design, and I'm trying out my number 1 tool, the larger end, and that seems to be working well. Sometimes you have to adjust which tool you're using for the absorbance of the product that you're working on, so kind of keep that in mind. And I'm just going to kind of do some swirl work all around this edge, and see where my tail ends is where I actually start my next stroke. And I chose black because black stands out so well. And I'm not going to go into the basics of the wax technique because we need this to be as short as we can keep this video because we have a lot of work to do. So if you have any questions about the wax technique, jump over to my website at miriamjoy.com, and there is a great DVD that shows up under the product line, and it'll walk you through the process. But this is a great process because you can use this on so many things. So I'm going to walk this down. I'm going to leave it right there, and we may come back and add another one on that side, but look how much that's already added to that. Isn't that fun? So we're going to come back. Now we have to think about this being the opposite direction now. So I want to make sure that we do that. And if you need to draw these individually out by hand, that's okay. There's no right or wrong. A lot of times when I'm teaching and I'm using this design, I will draw the first couple for my students, and then they can draw the rest from there. So there is no shame in drawing them on. And I'm not worried about being exactly perfect with the other side. Nobody will notice. If anybody gets that bold and starts counting, bop them. Okay, and I'm going to come down here, and we're going to put a design at the bottom here. Let's figure out what we want to do. Let's start with that first, and then see if I want something. I'm going to try something a little bit different here. Okay, and then I'm going to add a dot there, a dot there, and a dot there. Let's go up to the top. Let's add 3 up here. And then I'm going to go to probably a little bit smaller size. We're going to put dots around these as well. You can even switch to your 0 tool if you wanted. I think in a minute I'm going to come back and cover those with dots. That just kind of cleans it up. So we're going to come in here and we're just going to put dots around here. I think dots add so much to the design. Just makes it completer. If there's any tails you need to cover up, you can cover them up as well. Don't forget to stop and reload your crayon. And slow down just a little bit if you're starting to get those dots. If you're working with the bigger ones, sometimes you still get a couple of those flecks. But by slowing down, it takes those away. So slow down and take our time and make a nice gift. I just think this is one of my favorite ones I've been working on recently. They always ask me which one's my favorite one. I always say the latest one. That's whatever I have attached to at the time. See how much those dots have added to that design. I really think that's really great. So like I said, I'm going to come back and I'm going to add a dot right here on these two tips just to clean that up a little bit. Okay, we've got that part done and we're going to get started on our flower. Okay, once we've completed our lid and we've got our design done with the wax, we're going to start on our flower now. And what we're actually going to use is QuikWood, and I'm going to use the QuikWood like a clay. This is actually a wood putty epoxy, and I do have a 45-minute video on it. And if you're on YouTube, it's in 5 different parts, so check it all out. There's all kinds of things you can do with it. You'd be really, really amazed. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take off our jewelry and make sure that we've removed all of that, because QuikWood dries rock hard, including your jewelry, in an hour. That is the reason I like to use QuikWood. It's pliable for about 20 minutes. So when you open it, there's also a set of instructions or anything like that. So there's some different chemicals in here. I suggest that you do read it and follow the manufacturer's instructions. But epoxy is 2 parts, and there is your 2 parts. It's already pre-mixed for you. There's also a plastic wrap around this, and you don't want to remove it until we work with that part. So it has about 25 minutes workable time. We want to make sure that we're only doing the part that we're working with, that we don't actually mix it all up ahead of time. So first thing I'm going to do is take some vegetable spray, and the funnest thing is getting the lids off, and I'm going to spray my hands. And you don't want to have it so oily that your clay, which I will refer to the QuikWood as, not be able to stick to the project that you're working on. So I'm going to take it and also wipe it on my scissors, and I'm going to use my scissors to cut it. So I have a smaller piece here that I started using. I'm going to cut the next, and I don't need very much. It's actually harder to cut smaller pieces than larger pieces. And when you're done with that, you take that next little thing and cover it back up to keep it fresh till you use it again. And really, really important, remember that film, that plastic film I talked about, make sure you remove it. I can't tell you how many times I've got it started into a project and we find a plastic piece and we have to run what we're doing and pull it out. Now the way we activate the 2-part epoxy is to knead it. And see how it's got marbleized? We're going to knead that till it's all one color. It does have a chemical smell to it, kind of a perm smell. That's not too bad, but I really, really, this is my favorite thing to work with. Also, you can use a little bit of water to help make it a little bit more pliable, not adding it, just dampening your fingers and rubbing that in. That'll also remove any of the finger things, but I'm not going to use it in this project. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my first little piece, and whatever I'm not working on, I fold up in my corner so that this stays fresh. And you can see how big, even though I tried to cut a small piece, how big that is. And what we're going to do today is we're actually going to color our rose just with embossing powders, or as I refer to them as a lot of shimmer powders. And I always take my brush and put it into the lid because you don't want to bring it straight over from the thing that it's in, because there's so much on it. The little jar itself, you want to first bounce it on the up and down on the little lid, and that's where a lot of it drops off, and you can go back and use that. So we're making the little inside of the rose. Now on this project, we're going to add reflective light with gold. So any of the areas, we're going to do them on the top of the flower petals. So we've got our middle done. So I'm going to come in here, and don't make this harder than it is. And I'm simply going to roll a ball, and I'm going to use my smallest finger to make this petal. But see how I push it in so I have a lip right there? So that's my petal. And we're going to come in and we're going to add this embossing powder, and that's the only color that we are using on this rose. And I'm going to put the gold right on top, and then we're going to very carefully lift it up, and I'm going to color the back. And don't push down on this, kind of pounce on that when you're working from the back. And then we're going to cover that top part again with the gold. We're going to come over here with our little leaf petal, and we're going to apply that first one on. And I want to have it so when you set it down that this petal, it stays flat. We want to keep that base flat. So we're going to do our next one. And add the color again. I just love this with the QuikWood because we don't have any base colors. We're just adding this, and because it's sticky, we don't have to use anything to apply the color with. This is one of my new favorite things to do. I love working with both the embossing powders but the QuikWood as well. I have a lot of fun coming up with new things. And we're going to take it and we're going to put it on our rose. You want those coming out just a little bit. Let's do one more. And we're going to color that in. And put that up, flip him over. Color him as well. And add that color on. Okay, and we have our 3 little leaves around that. So at this point in time, I also want you to do 3 more little leaves. We're going to fast forward here around that, and when you get to these 3, just a tad bit bigger, and pull their petals back just a little bit so they're not sticking straight out in the front. And at this point in time, once you've completed the center and the 6 petals, I would like to set it aside at least probably 20 minutes to half an hour to let this dry. Otherwise, when you try to add the next section of petals on, these are still too pliable and we bend them too easy. So we're going to let that dry for just a real quick bit. Alright, we've got that guy a little bit dry, so he's not real pliable. And we're going to use a little bit bigger rose petals here. And I'm going to come in with a little bit bigger finger, because I've got bigger room. And we're going to do exactly the same thing we were doing before. We're just going to make it a little bit bigger. And we're going to that right onto the rose. Oops, we got to do the back. Forgot the back. Don't forget the back. And you actually pick up these veins in your hand, and I really kind of like it because if you look at a rose petal, you actually have those. So I like leaving that. Not only that is it's so frail, you can't really come in and smooth it very well, but I love the way that looks anyway. So we're going to actually come in here, and we're going to go from 3 petals now to 5 petals. And my husband says that my tagline should be, nature is always odd. Nature is not even. That is why we are so odd. I always get it the second time around. I never can get it the first time around. But that was one of the hardest things for me to do when I was doing flowers. If you look at flowers, flowers are 5 petals, 7 petals. They're never even. And as humans, we want to be even. But if you look at it, it's not as pleasing to the eye. It's actually more pleasing if it's odd. That's why us odd people, I guess, do well. We can't all be even. Okay, so we've got this little guy on here, and we're just going to overlap him just a tad and keep on these leaves. We're just bending them back just a little bit. And the great thing about it is if you don't like the leaf first time you did it, wad it up in a ball and start again. There is no right or wrong on this. It's just how you interpret it here. And so we're going to go ahead and put 5 leaves around this. And these were actually a couple of petals I had on it earlier, but I've probably gone over my initial base. So we want to do 5 more petals. And another thing is when you're working with it, if you go to your next, you only have a little tiny bit of clay, you need to start your next batch, take this little piece and work it into your clay, and it will keep it even fresher as you're going. But we're going to do the 5 petals, and then we're going to do another set, and I think I have 3 sets of 5. On this last set of roses, what I actually did is I used my QuikWood lid, and I actually set it in here after I did them and let them kind of drape down so that they kind of hung down. Then it kind of covers up everything on the rose as well. So once we're done with the rose part, leave that guy kind of there. We're going to come over and we're going to start on our leaves. Now our leaves, we're going to do them directly onto our box, and try not to touch your hands too much with the box because you've got your vegetable oil and you don't want to leave your grease prints behind. If you do, throw some embossing powder on there, that's okay. But we're going to work this QuikWood real quick here, and we're going to start on our leaves. And I want you to think about where you want them, and you don't want to put them so far in that the rose doesn't show, or the leaves don't show once you put the rose on. So you could even, if your rose is dry, just kind of come in here and look at it. Now this design, I should have done these a little bit smaller, and maybe I'll even do 2 or on one side or something. We'll kind of play with it just a bit. But let's make this leaf here real quick. And I'm going to take it and I am going to push it with my finger. And I didn't like that because I forgot to make it a little bit oblong. So I'm going to take it and make it a little bit oblong. We still have a little bit of color from the rose on us, but that's okay. And see how I've kind of got that worked into my finger? It's up longer, and we're going to take that tip and we're just going to pull it. And then remember, we're allowing room for that rose as well. And we're going to come in here and we're going to push this down onto the box just a little bit. And If you need to bring those sides back up, go ahead and do that. Just kind of round them back up. And I'm going to come in here with my green now, and I love the green. I don't know why it just stands out so much to me. I just love this. And we're just going to put that right on the leaf, and then we're going to take our gold, and remember we want to do reflective light, and we're going to put the gold on the sides and the edges of our leaf. And I'm actually going to have my husband break, and I'm going to go grab a clay tool, and I will be right back. Okay, we grabbed our clay tool, and I also added a little bit of highlight right down the middle of that leaf, which I usually do as well. And I'm going to take this, I'm going to gently walk it down. If you didn't have a clay tool, you can find any kind of object that would kind of work. I think your hobby knife would be too thin to work in this area because you want a nice, good impression. Clay tools are not that expensive. They're kind of a nice thing to have. And see how simple that was, and what a nice looking leaf. So you go ahead and do 3 of those, and those would be wet. Those wouldn't have dried yet. So if they did dry, just put them on with your E6000. I'm still going to put that even over the design. I think I like it that way. If you didn't want to, you could put it like that. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm going to go ahead and cover that up. And then while these guys are still wet, you could put a little bit of E6000 as on there as well, but you take your rose and you squish it into your clay, and you squish it down so it looks like it's in the clay, and the clay will actually hold it if you secure it to enough of the clay. But isn't that gorgeous? I just love that little rose, and I think it's something that's really fun to give as a gift to somebody. If you have any questions about this project, please visit my email me at art@miriamjoy.com. For any of the products, visit my website at miriamjoy.com. There is some video link where you can pick up more of these fun YouTube videos, and also there's a Facebook link where I post something new every day under Miriam Joy Gourd Creations. Thank you for coming to my studio and playing with me today. God bless.